Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and if there's one thing that Apple takes a lot of pride in, it's their hardware design. From the look, the feel, the impression of luxury, to even the choice of color, something that lends to an individualized experience, as the consumer now has the choice to help them at least somewhat stand out from the other millions of users with the exact same device.
It's simpler, more essential, yet it's more capable and certainly more colorful.
iPhones have had a lot of colors over the years, but a single one stands out to me amongst the rest as perhaps the strangest, and there have been some pretty odd ones as is. I'd argue the midnight green iPhone 11 Pro as an example was a bit of an odd addition, but it's actually also a good example of how Apple doesn't follow trends so much as set them. How many phones were doing a green color before the 11 Pro? I don't think too many. And while green is still not super common, it's definitely around from Android competitors. And we've seen this again and again over the years. Apple was slowly adding these colors and everybody else basically immediately followed suit, with certain colors seemingly just taking a hold of the industry. No better example than the gold color from the iPhone 5S in 2013, which quickly became a standard option alongside black and white among pretty much every phone being made. Samsung is a company that often doesn't give in to trends too easily, but even they made their 2015 Galaxy S6 in gold. And if you look at that few years of smartphones in general, it's pretty clear where they drew their inspiration. It used to be that Apple kind of adding these colors was this really big event. Don't worry, we are going to get to the strangest color, okay, we haven't forgotten, but I want to kind of lay the groundwork because just talking about one color option isn't exactly the most interesting. But you know, we think back to the iPhone 2G, which I think I have one somewhere around here. I literally just did like an hour-long retrospective on this thing, so check that out after this video maybe. So this phone, right, this is silver and black. This was the first iPhone. It kind of has this two-tone design that Apple's never gone back to, which is pretty cool. I really like it, and it was a very premium material for the industry at the time, which I don't think a lot of people realize. Phones back then, and I've got a bunch behind me here, you know, this is a Palm Trio, they were all plastic, right? Front to back, they were plastic. Even the screens, often plastic, if not almost always plastic. So for them to go to aluminum and glass was part of the reason the phone was so expensive at the time, and it was pretty expensive for the time, although not that far off from other smartphones. But doing so, you know, silver was kind of just the natural aluminum color, and so that's what they went with. But the next year with the iPhone 3G, that's when they switched to glossy plastic in order to reduce costs. The iPhone 3G really only brought 3G networking, basically. It had the same processor and everything, but it significantly reduced the starting price from like $500 to $200. So, you know, pretty big deal. And of course, with plastic now, it's easy to add colors, but in typical Steve Jobs fashion, he wasn't just gonna add a bunch of colors like maybe some other companies would do, or Apple would do with like their iPod Nanos. Instead, they had white and they had black, and that was it. But, you know, that's some variety. That's nice. The 3GS, of course, had the same design and the same colors. Then the iPhone 4 in 2010 went to, again, the premium materials that people weren't used to seeing in any sort of smartphone. It was kind of mind-boggling just how great that design was, but it also had a black and white option, with one key problem. The white color was really hard for Apple to actually develop, and they had to delay it by a huge amount of months. It was maybe April 2011 that the white color actually launched for the iPhone 4 finally. So that's pretty brutal. I don't think we've seen any color delay purely because Apple couldn't figure it out to that extent, at least since then. We have seen shortages in colors, and that would come pretty soon. The iPhone 4S had black and white as well. The iPhone 5 brought the white and silver with sort of a two-tone design. I guess I said Apple's never really brought it back, that they sort of did with the 5 and the 5S, with the glass on the top and the bottom of the phone. So I guess I'm kind of wrong. They have brought the two-tone design back. I never really thought of it that way. That makes me feel stupid. Oh well, moving on. The iPhone 5 going to aluminum from the iPhone 4 was a logical move, as the glass frankly wasn't very durable, and with wireless charging not yet being a thing, there was no point of a glass back aside from the fact that it looked good. A metal that didn't crack the smallest drop made a whole lot more sense. It's easy to forget how much of a problem the iPhone 4 and 4S cracking was back in the day. The iPhone 5 though, the black and slate was interesting. It had a bit of a blue tinge to it because it was aluminum. They needed to make the color kind of different than they would for the glass. It was still pretty dark though, but the color had some issues. It would chip and scratch really easily. The finish just wasn't very good, even though the color I thought looked great. So the next year with the iPhone 5S, they dropped black and slate altogether on all of their products and replaced it with the infamous space gray that Apple would use a lot with a lot of different variations over the years. But along with the space gray, you also had the white and silver again, but then the gold color. And this is where people started to get really really hyped. This is when Apple finally brought some variety into the lineup, something Steve Jobs may not have been okay with. It's hard to say, honestly. This was after, of course, he passed and the reins had been handed to Johnny Ive and Tim Cook. It was definitely the start of a new era for Apple. You had iOS 7 as well, which was very colorful, but the gold color was so popular that that phone was just always sold out. That was the one everyone wanted because it was different. Also in 2013, you have the iPhone 5C with a plethora of colors. None of these, in my opinion, are the strangest. I mean, the phone in general is probably the strangest iPhone, but I think the colors themselves are pretty straightforward. 2014, iPhone 6, the phone is big now, same colors though. 2015, the 6S, same design, but Apple changes things up by at least adding another color. The rose gold color with the 6S was essentially just a light pinkish gold, and also took the smartphone world by storm. And you know, they seem to be in a pretty good pattern here where even though the design isn't changing, they're adding another color to give people something. And within the year after it launched, the market was absolutely oversaturated with some sort of rose gold option to go with the gold, silver / white, and black, or in Apple's case, because they're quirky, space gray. There was actually a bit of a drought for properly black iPhones from Apple for a while there, as Apple had moved away from them from the 2013 iPhone 5S up to the 2016 iPhone 7, which did bring the matte black, as well as the jet black. At this point, we've got a wide range of colors. That jet black especially is quite interesting, and we eventually get a red iPhone 7 as well, midway through its life cycle. From there, you have 2017, the iPhone 10 only has 2 colors again because the phone seemed rushed. It was already delayed. Apple probably just didn't have the time to make more colors. The 10S the next year brought gold. iPhone 8 had the standard white, black, gold, and a red again, but with a black front, which is important, and we'll come back to that. Then in 2018, you had the iPhone 10R as well as the 10S, and the 10R brought a bunch of colors, just like that 5C did. And since then, we've kind of had that continuing variety of colors. Things haven't really changed a whole lot. And while we have seen like Samsung have these, like the S10e with their colors, that sort of stuff that kind of copies Apple, I mean, okay, pretty well copies the 10R, I think that's fair to say. A new color is no longer really a big deal anymore. It can be for some people, but it's just not as exciting. And you know, iPhone in general and smartphones in general today just aren't as exciting as they used to be because we've had them for so long. This iPhone came out 17 years ago, right? Like, it's crazy. Now, it's not just the colors that have changed over the years, the materials have as well, but that's not as important for this video, though they can often make a big factor in what colors are even achievable, especially in the early days. Nowadays, I'm sure Apple could color pretty much anything they want, but you know, like they had trouble with that glass white iPhone 4 and so on, and they went back to the glass and stainless steel with the iPhone 10, something that continued up until finally the 15 Pro. And other companies tend to follow suit in the materials being used as well over the years. But both the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5 really set the iPhone as a tier above the Android crowd, which was still often using plastic polycarbonate. And it was around this era, you know, the iPhone 5S to the iPhone 6, a lot of Android phones moved to aluminum, Samsung actually moved to glass, and we kind of entered this era of phones where most of them looked almost identical to the iPhone 6, kind of a boring era in design. So Apple's changed a lot about their design language over the years, right? And with that, they've had a lot of different colors to go with it. Under Steve Jobs, he only had those white and black options, but since then, we've seen nearly anything and everything in between. So let's take a moment here and look through the contenders for what we might consider the strangest iPhone color ever made. And when I say strangest, I really mean one that is surprising from Apple and doesn't make a lot of sense considering their past patterns and general way they go about things. The first is potentially the iPhone 4 in white, but then again, the iPhone 3G and 3GS were both in white as well, so it's not really a fit here despite the massive delays. The iPhone 5S bringing gold, I think, was actually a natural evolution, made a lot of sense for Apple at the time. You know, iPhone design not changing was never really that exciting for people. People often complained about phones looking the same every year, which is almost comical considering how it is now. Like, phones were still changing pretty quickly back then, but that's how it was, right? And so the gold color made sense. Now the iPhone 5C with all its colors, as we said, as much as it was weird for Apple to do the 5C in general, I think it was the phone itself and its polycarbonate plastic which kind of removed that luxury element. I think that was the weird part, not the colors necessarily. I think the colors were just a part of the phone's identity, so the whole thing was strange in general, not any one particular color. In any case, the 5C was a huge failure by Apple's standards, but the colors have all reappeared in some form or variation in the years since. So after 2013, you know, you have those boring years in iPhone design with the 6 and the 6S, you got the rose gold, then you had the iPhone 7, and now we're really getting into some more variety. Rose gold, gold, silver, matte black, and the very unique jet black. And the jet black right there is definitely one of the weirdest iPhone colors ever made. Also, side note, only footage I actually have of a jet black iPhone 7 myself is from, I think, 2017, filmed on an old iPhone 6S, so enjoy the compressed footage. The jet black iPhone 7 had a glossy mirror-like finish that was achieved through a precision 9-step anodization standardization and polishing process. This gave the phone a seamless surface between the glass front and aluminum back, making it feel incredibly smooth and continuous. The jet black color was only available for the higher capacity models of the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. I think it was 128 gigs and 256, which added a certain level of exclusivity for it, right? It cost more money. However, the jet black version also had its fair share of problems. It was more prone to micro abrasions and fine scratches compared to the other color options. Apple very much acknowledged this from the get-go and suggested that users who choose this color should use a case if they were concerned about the potential for scratching. The jet black to me stands out as probably the most unique iPhone color of all time if it weren't for the fact that it was black. And we've seen black iPhones, right? I can't help but feel like the way that it came about was really interesting and unique and probably worth a video on its own, but this isn't the strangest iPhone color of all time. So what is? Well, there's actually one more color of the iPhone 7 that I glossed over, and that is of course Product Red. Product Red, I meant Product Red. In March 2017, the Product Red Special Edition was released featuring a bright red aluminum finish, and part of the proceeds from every Product Red purchase would go directly to the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, a good cause and a great color, so what's weird about that? Heck, Product Red has been a part of Apple's design language forever, dating back to the year the initiative was founded, with the Special Edition Product Red iPod Nano coming out in 2006. Something Jobs apparently was initially against, as he didn't want to in any way cheapen the iPod brand, but thankfully he came around on it. What's weird about the Product Red iPhone 7 isn't the story behind it, although seeing the most premium iPhone available in such a vibrant color is admittedly strange given Apple's history. Since the iPhone 7, the #1 iPhone, the best iPhone, the Pro models, none of them have had a bright, vibrant color. They've had some interesting colors, you've had purple, blue, midnight green, these sorts of things, but none of them are particularly vibrant. I guess the pale blue is lighter at least, but it's not like the red was. And while no flagship iPhone has brought Product Red back, we have seen it on basically every cheaper iPhone since the 7, which is awesome. The simple answer for why the iPhone 7 got red and none of the succeeding flagship iPhones did is because Apple back in these days only did one phone per year, at least generally speaking. But what makes this color weird isn't necessarily the red itself. Again, it's strange that Apple has such a vibrant color on their flagship at this point, but you know, that's not necessarily the weirdest thing considering the charity aspect and all that. What's weird is how they decided to go about it, specifically with the front display bezels, in conjunction with the silver home button ring. This looks weird, and it totally does not fit as much as a purely black front would have, case in point being the iPhone 8, which did just that and looked so much better because of it. And even current iPhone SEs have done the same, with the red back contrasting perfectly with the full black front. These phones are gorgeous, but no, for some reason Apple decided to go with the white and silver on the front of the red iPhone 7. Why? Why did they do this? The only thing I can think of off the top of my head is maybe they had an abundance of those white and silver display front glasses versus the black, but I don't know, that seems pretty weak to me because they definitely had black ones for both the matte black and the jet black. Maybe those were just in way higher demand? Ultimately though, this does make for the red iPhone 7 being, in my opinion, the strangest iPhone color ever made. I wouldn't call it unnecessary or gimmicky, and the proceeds gained going to a good cause is very good, of course. There's really no downside here, but it doesn't make this any less of a weird thing for Apple, a company who so rarely used to bring out new colors to the point that when they did, you could guarantee it would be sold out immediately. Plus the white bezels and silver ring on the home button, to me it wasn't just a weird choice, but more of a lazy choice. Going with white bezels is potentially fine. Why not make that ring red? What would be wrong with that? It would give it a significantly more unique look, and I mean, I think it would be awesome. It would definitely stand out from the crowd, well, even more so, and it would have made for probably one of the most desirable kind of iPhone colors of all time. And instead, we still have what is considered a great color, but one just lacking something. Either give it the black front or give it like a red ring, and I think you're good to go, but as it stands, the red iPhone 7 is the strangest iPhone color ever made, at least so far. Also, the phone is really hard to find. You might notice I haven't used my own footage for this, and that's because I don't have one. They're more expensive on eBay these days simply because they are a bit more rare. They came out midway through the life cycle, and then they axed it once the iPhone 8 and iPhone 10 came out. On eBay, they're a bit overpriced. I might get one at some point, but if you want one yourself, I mean, hey, more power to you. iPhone 7's pretty dead at this point, but it is a pretty cool color. So, all this being said, do you agree with me? Do you think this is the weirdest, strangest iPhone color ever, or is it something else? This is obviously incredibly subjective, so definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content, not exactly like this, but within the realm of tech. And huge thank you to the channel members. You guys are the absolute best. I got social medias I don't use if you want to follow me over there, and we do have a Discord server, which is always fun. Links to all this and more in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.